Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael Voris.
And I'm Simon Rafe.
And this is our show, Moral Compass. Freedom is perhaps the most prized of all human values. Freedom is an essential aspect, the essential aspect of what it means to be made in the image of God, the Imago Dei. The U.S. Declaration of Independence recognizes the divine source of human freedom or liberty in its most famous line,
"We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness."
Freedom, written inside us by our Creator, allows us to work, to marry, to raise a family, to own property, to move around as we please, to engage in leisure, to act responsibly as a mother or father, to court a potential spouse, and to worship God. In other words, freedom allows us to live our lives in a wonderful and human way.
So freedom is a good thing, just like everything else created by God. And just like everything created by God can be wrongly used for evil. We hear the pro-abortion crowd claiming freedom to choose and all that all the time, but exactly what kind of freedom are they claiming? As Pope John Paul II said to Americans in 1993, let us pause and reason together.
They promise them freedom, but they themselves are slaves of corruption. For whatever overcomes a man, to that he is enslaved.
We all want freedom, but freedom can be used for our own selfish desires, and then it becomes slavery. It's freedom gone wild. If it's valued for its own sake like that, and not for the pursuit of the truth, not for the pursuit of the good, not for the pursuit of God, what happens then?
Well, it's like this. You own a car and you want to drive it. Now you have the freedom to put anything you want in the gas tank. Orange juice, mouthwash, vodka. You're free to do this. But will you become any freer by doing so? No. Your car won't run well, and you won't get to where you want to go. But if you respect the plan of the car's maker by freely choosing to put gasoline in the tank, your car runs well and your freedom of mobility is increased. So freedom has to be exercised in accordance with truth. Otherwise, it's not true freedom. In fact, when we exercise freedom badly, we lose it. Unfortunately, not enough people understand this, and so a false idea of freedom has taken hold. This false idea of freedom has gone so far that for many, well, it's become the freedom to murder.
Abortion illustrates freedom gone wild better than any issue today. This can be perceived in the very arguments that are used to support it. The right to choose, that's what they call it.
The right to choose is a catchy slogan, but it's bad reasoning. You have to finish the sentence. The right to choose what? What it comes down to is the right to choose what I want, no matter who gets hurt. When supporters of abortion rights say the right to choose, they appeal to the great value that we all have for freedom, but they ignore the fact that our freedom to choose ends where the rights of another person begin. They ignore the greater value of new human life, as well as the greater value of the mother-child relationship, so necessary to the health of individuals and society. For them, the truth about what abortion is takes a backseat to freedom, and so for them, freedom has gone wild.
They ignore the greater value of new human life, as well as the greater value of the mother-child relationship, so necessary to the health of individuals and the greater society. For them, the truth of what abortion is takes a backseat to freedom, so for them, freedom has gone wild. Abortion supporters have to explain why the killing of a child in the womb is any different than the killing of a child outside the womb.
abortion supporters have to explain why the killing of a child in the womb is any different than the killing of a child outside the womb. Some say the mother has the freedom to decide whether the child is a tiny human being or more like a parasite or a tumor that can be removed and thrown away.
So the child is not a child, it's a growth in the woman's body. The woman is not a mother, but it's somebody who has to be rid of the growth. The woman doesn't have responsibility for the child. The woman has the right to be free of any sort of responsibility to it.
They're effectively claiming that human freedom has the power to make its own truths. If the mother wants him, he's her son. If not, he's a parasite or a tumor. But what we call something does not change what it is. We can't just declare a fetus into a tumor any more than we can declare a tumor into a fetus. Our freedom simply doesn't have that kind of power over reality.
Pro-abortion arguments are not really arguments. They don't appeal to reason. They appeal to emotions, usually pointing out how difficult life is for so many women who find themselves pregnant and how difficult life would be for their children. These kinds of arguments don't stand unless we are willing to permit the intentional killing of the innocent when things get difficult.
How does killing solve a problem of suffering? How does killing solve poverty? How does killing solve an abusive situation?
If the difficulty of life is the argument, then why not allow the killing of other people because of hardships? Why not kill an infant to spare him a lifetime of poverty? Why not let his mother relieve herself of the burden of taking care of him? Why shouldn't violence against the innocent be used to solve our problems?
Why shouldn't violence against the innocent be used to solve all of our problems? Of course, we don't even need to answer this, it's clear. The ethical response to the hardships of life is to help people who suffer from these hardships, to help them, not kill them, and to work to prevent these situations from happening in the future.
Whether the problem is an unsupportive boyfriend, or poverty, or shame, or whatever it is, we need to help women instead of abandoning them to their fears to resort to abortion. Most women don't have an abortion because they have a choice. They have an abortion because they feel like they have no choice.
Abortion is not about freedom. If the unborn is a human life, a human being, not the right to privacy argument nor any other argument will justify the taking of that life.
The 1973 Supreme Court decision Roe versus Wade established abortion as a constitutional right. It mandated that abortion be allowed in each trimester with a different degree of regulation for each one. Now, in the third trimester, abortions could be regulated as long as an exception was allowed for the health of the mother. But on the same day, in 1973, a companion case, Doe versus Bolton, the court defined health very broadly, as including the physical, emotional, and psychological well-being, as well as the mother's age and relationship to her other children. Now, in practice, these two cases in tandem have established abortion on demand at any point in pregnancy up until birth. An idea not found explicitly in the Constitution was used as reasoning. It is the right to privacy. And this reasoning has since been severely criticized, even by those who support abortion. The Roe versus Wade decision also states that the court is not deciding when life begins. For judges, that question is undecided, but they are determining when the fetus can enjoy the protection of constitutional rights. But is it really unclear when human life begins? Now, as it turns out, this is the key question.
Modern technology and embryology confirm and expand what mothers already know from experience. Human embryos and human fetuses are human lives. They are human beings. After all, if they aren't human, what are they? They're not tumors, they're not parasites or part of the mother's body, and they are definitely not potential human beings. It's basic biology, the principles of biogenesis. First, all life comes from pre-existing life. And second, each being reproduces after its own kind. In other words, a human man and a human woman cannot conceive anything but a human child. They cannot conceive something else that later becomes a human being.
A decent biologist who's not blinded by some other agenda, and you realize there's no way out. human life begins at conception.
From conception, it is a distinct, unified, self-integrating human being with a distinct genetic code and the built-in promise of developing through the various stages of life, from zygote to embryo, to fetus, to infant, to child, and from child into adult, a living human being through every stage. Although in its early stages it may not look like a human being to some, it actually looks exactly the way a human being in these stages is supposed to look. No wonder that mothers and families instinctively act as if there's a true human being in the womb. They talk to the child, they sing to it, they embrace and they love the child.
The fact is, the nurturing relationship that lasts throughout the child's whole life begins in the womb.
Some people who support abortion argue that the fetus in the womb is a human being, but not a human person. This is just semantics. How can a human being not also be a human person? What other criteria will we use to define the human person? Brainwaves? Consciousness? Mature reasoning power? Sensitivity to pain?
But if we want to draw an arbitrary line at one of those places, we can't continue to draw it at birth where it was put by the Supreme Court. The problem with drawing these lines is they exclude other persons. Is it okay to kill those who are sleeping or in a coma? Can we kill infants or the mentally handicapped?
When abortion advocates say that a child in the womb is not a person, what it comes down to is them discriminating against the child's size, location, level of development, and level of dependency.
Or maybe the line that separates a human being from a human person is whether her mother wants her. Now, we've seen this all before. If you start trying to define personhood more narrowly than the human organism itself, things get really scary really fast.
Whenever we have excluded a segment of the human family from the rights and dignity that they deserve, those doing the excluding are always doing so for material gain, their own gain, or for their convenience or their fear and hopelessness. The scourge of abortion is grounded in material gain, convenience, fear, and hopelessness. It is not based on the dignity of the human person.
The freedom that abortion supposedly represents is no kind of freedom at all. In fact, it is an exercise of raw power by the powerful over the powerless who are in the way and cannot defend themselves.
Live as free men, yet without using your freedom as a pretext for evil, but live as servants of God.
In 1993, Pope John Paul II came to the United States. As he was about to leave, he said that commitment to the moral renewal of society is commitment to the victory of the culture of life over the culture of death. This was the first time that he used these terms that have now become known and used even outside the church.
The false understanding of freedom, the freedom gone wild, is the driving force behind the culture of death. What was once the freedom to seek God and to worship Him, raise a family, work, speak one's mind, the freedom to live and flourish as a human being, has become for many, under the right to privacy, the freedom to kill others and the freedom to radically redefine human life.
The inalienable right to liberty witnessed to by the Declaration of Independence has been twisted so that it is pitted against what is supposed to be an inalienable right to life.
And so the notion of freedom goes so far that if somebody interferes with my convenience or my material well-being or what I want to do in regard to pleasure, if somebody interferes with it, I can actually kill them. And America said, yes, you can.
Until America ends abortion, our nation will never live up to its greatness.
For freedom, Christ has set us free. Stand fast, therefore, and do not submit again to a yoke of slavery.
We know what the result is. Overcome by various passions, people believe that they have the right to do things like drugs, to engage in illicit sex, to lie in business and personal relationships, to ignore authority, and to trade mature relationships for the endless pursuit of pleasure. We can even see our governments beginning to protect some of these false freedoms.
People are increasingly doing whatever they want, whenever they want, and for whatever reason they want it. This is freedom gone wild. It's freedom seen as an absolute. Instead of being the freedom to seek and worship God, it is the freedom to be one's own God.
This is not true freedom. True freedom makes a way for every child that comes into this world. It embraces them and teaches them that the way to happiness is living and loving communion with God and with other people.
The victory of the culture of life over the culture of death is a goal that every man and woman of goodwill should be striving for. A culture that doesn't want all of its children, that kills them and turns a blind eye to their killing, well, that is a culture of death.
I'm Michael Voris, and this has been Moral Compass.
I'm Simon Rafe. God love you.